What's up, everybody? We are back for more fantasy baseball content, and in this video we're going to go over 3 players that are just begging you to buy low on them right now. Now is a good time to try and buy low on some players because at this point in the season, fantasy managers A, think they have enough data, B, think they've seen enough games played, or C, just completely fed up with waiting on their star player. So that can lead some fantasy managers to make inaccurate rest of season judgments about players that are not currently living up to their draft day value. So in this video, we're going to go over 3 early round players where in some leagues, your league mates may just be ready to move on for them and we can get them at a good price. But remember, things happen so fast in baseball. One pitcher can have one great start and that buy low option has completely disappeared. And we're not going to talk about these early round studs that may be still stuttering a little bit because I know fantasy managers are never going to sell low on their superstars that they drafted in the first round or early second round. We're going to go on that next tier of players where fantasy managers don't necessarily have that draft capital that makes them so stubborn in moving a player. So the goal here is to highlight some players that don't currently have the counting stats that reflect their rest of season value. And I know every league is different and every fantasy manager is different when it comes to trading and valuing players. So you have to really assess your league and league mates before floating some ridiculous lowball offer that's going to kibosh the trade before it even begun. One of the most annoying things in fantasy is getting those ridiculously lowball trade offers for players that are just slightly underperforming. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get a player at 75 to 80 cents to the dollar that we know or that we think is a good bet to recoup that value in the second half of the season. Remember, for a trade to get done, there has to be value going both ways. And it's always a good idea to scope your league mate's roster before you send a trade to see if you can identify any weaknesses that they might have. Like for example, if they're stacked in the outfield, don't go offer them an outfielder because they're going to reject it immediately. See if they need starting pitching or a corner infielder and see if that lines up with your team and your team needs as well. And lastly, don't be a used car salesman listing off every reason in the book that they should take this player. Whenever that happens to me, I'm always just thinking, if this player is so freaking good, why aren't you keeping him then? Leagues are getting more and more competitive each year and people just see right through that. So next time we're about to go do a trade, if you just take those few things into account, I think you'll have a lot more success, or at least a better dialogue between you and your league mate going forward. With that being said, I'm going to release a part 2 of this video later in the weekend or early next week. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't, turn those noties on. If you're liking these videos, if you're liking this content, give it a thumbs up as well. Also comment down below if you have any questions too. I make sure I reply to every single one each video. And if you think the video's crap, let me know too. It's all good. I'm Chris and welcome to Number 2 Sports. Okay, first up, we have the little brother of one of my favorite past Mariner players, Seager. Corey's been a mainstay at the shortstop position for almost a decade now, which is crazy to think. And for years, he's always been a very sought-after draft choice for fantasy managers. This year, he's been roughly drafted anywhere from the 3rd to 4th round this draft season, and people had high hopes, and people had high expectations, and expected production from the middle infield spot all season long. But that hasn't happened with Corey at all. He has started off very slowly and is recently coming off a 2 for 34 stretch and also right off a hamstring injury that put him on the IL for a few weeks. Add that all up and I think it's a perfect time to try and buy low on him right now. All his hard hit metrics are still at the top of the league. Nothing has really changed from prior years besides his sweet spot percentage, but that could be due to the fact it's such a small sample size or that he's trying to overextend to compensate for a poor Texas lineup so far this season. His expected WOBA is 70 points higher than his actual. His expected batting average is 50 points higher than his actual. And to make it a trifecta, his expected slugging percentage is 140 points higher than his current mark. He is striking out a tiny bit more and walking a bit less, but in a 36 game sample size, that's probably too small and not an issue that we need to worry about at this time. Nothing points to him having diminished value whatsoever. And you might say, well, this looks so obvious. Who's going to go sell low on him then? And that's where there could be this stigma about him being super injury prone. And I get it. People do have a point. He has missed a ton of games in his career. But if we just look at the last few years, it hasn't been as bad as most people probably think. If a player is performing unbelievably well when healthy and then gets hurt, it's easier to wait on him than if a player has been absolutely atrocious at the dish and then gets hurt. So that's what I'm thinking with Corey. All these injury concerns, all this injury stigma is right at the top of the front right now because he's playing so bad. So with fantasy managers maybe being worried about his prior injury history and not satisfied with his sub-average production so far this year, now is the perfect time, I think, to send buy low offers for Corey Seager. He is still that multi-category superstar, and if we can get him at any discount, I think it could be a league-winning move for the second half of the season. It is a risk I'm willing to take in any league that I can get him. Next up, we have a guy who many people drafted to be their ace or SP2, and who struggled mightily throughout the year besides a few bright outings, and that's Dylan Cease off the Padres. Now, Dylan has pitched poorly for most of the year this year, with underwhelming strikeout numbers, poor peripherals, and limited quality starts or wins. But in his last outing against the Dodgers, his potential ceiling was on full display again. And remember in the intro when I said things can change so fast in fantasy baseball? This is exactly what I was talking about. That is the ceiling that fantasy managers were chasing when they used a high draft pick to select Cease to stabilize the rotation throughout the year. High strikeout potential and ability to pitch deep into games. Those two go hand in hand in wins and quality starts as well. But frankly, we just really haven't seen that from Cease this year, besides a few starts sprinkled in here and there. And the thing is, nothing has really changed for us to suddenly believe that he's in a downward spiral or that he's a different pitcher from years past. He has scuffled to a 4.28 ERA, which was a lot higher before he just fired 7 shutout innings against the Dodgers in his last start. But if we look a little deeper, it looks to be the exact same pitcher or very close to the one that had an ERA under 4 in 3 of the last 4 seasons. His expected ERA is 3.6, and he's an expected FIP of 3.2, showing that he's due for some positive regression in the future. His left on base percentage isn't absurdly high, which would scream regression, and his home run to fly ball ratio is at career steady or near MLB average, showing that he's not being unlucky or lucky in the home run department. His K percentage is actually up this year, and he's added an extra tick or two on his slider velocity as well. And potentially the biggest indicator of future value, if we just zoom out for a second, if we look back and take out the month of April, where he was the most atrocious he's been this year, his ERA has been superb the next 2 months. May and June were great. Now, Cease is notoriously a two-pitch pitcher, and two-pitch pitchers can be susceptible to more variances and more swings in their stats throughout the course of a year. So in April, he was trying to incorporate this changeup or add this third pitch into his arsenal, and it just wasn't working for him at all. He ditched the pitch at the end of April, and the results speak for themselves. In May and June, just like I said, his ERA was fine. That is why I think he's another great buy low candidate right now in all leagues. There's 2 ways you can go about this. You can try and acquire him now before he faces the Dodgers again in his next outing, or you can wait till after that outing where the odds are he's not going to have a good a start as he just did, and that manager can just think it was one of these random good starts sprinkled in again. But let's be clear, if he goes out and dominates the Dodgers 2 outings in a row, the buy low opportunity is slam shut. Don't be afraid to go float out some offers for Cease and see if that owner is willing to part ways for him on a discount. Last up, we have one of the most annoying but most dominant characters in Super Smash Bros. History, George Kirby from the good old Seattle Mariners. Like Dylan, Kirby's last outing was electric, the type of start that gives you that tingling in your loins. And you might be thinking, well, weren't you just talking about how quickly fantasy buy low doors slam shut? And hasn't that just happened here? And potentially. But I think this could be an instance where fantasy managers were so fed up waiting for Kirby to get off his rehab assignment that took longer than expected, and then his start to the year went about as poorly as you could imagine, putting up 3 stinkers in a row, where they might actually take this opportunity to sell Kirby on a high note, where they think they can recoup some value, rather than selling him at the lowest of lows. Pitchers are scary coming off shoulder injuries or just injuries in general, as you can see this year with a lot of other main guys struggling to come back from Tommy John or other elbow or shoulder issues. So some fantasy managers may still be having draft day regret. So I think this could be a great time to trade for him and still sort of a buy low opportunity as well. His ERA is a disgusting 6.53 right now, but his expected ERA is 4.27. His FIP is even more telling with it being 4.04, but his expected FIP is 2.85. He's running a high BABIP right now with a 385 and a disgusting home run to fly ball ratio of 21%. And I know it's a small sample size, but the league average and his career average is around 10%. So it's running a whole 10% higher. All of that factored in contributes to his left on base percentage of around 60%, which again is awful. It means so many base runners are eventually coming around to score, which will inflate his ERA. League average is around 70 to 80%. And that's where Kirby has been most of his career. All of these things are screaming positive regression and are not indicative of his current peripherals or his current stats. He has been a dominant pitcher for the first 3 years of his career, and I don't believe that shoulder injury or that mishap offseason will infect him the entire year. Once he knocks off the rust, and he may have already, I expect him to be a fantasy ace the rest of the season. I would be looking to trade for Kirby in every league that he's attainable. He's almost as dominant in real life as Kirby is in Super Smash Bros. When you're 15 beers deep with the boys doing a rumble. So that's it for this video. I appreciate everybody watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm releasing part 2, sell high players, later this weekend or early next week, so you don't want to miss it. I also didn't put any hypothetical trade offers for these players because I know every league's different, every fantasy manager is different. But if you have any questions or any trade ideas, put them down in the comments below. And like I said, I'll respond to every single comment, every video. There will be no waiver wire video this Sunday because I'm away on a golf trip, but there are 3 players that I just want to quickly mention and that I'd be interested in adding. Christian Encarnacion Strand, Evan Carter, and Ben Kasperius, because it looks like he's getting stretched out to be a traditional starter again due to some of the injuries to the starting pitchers on the Dodgers. I hope everybody has a good rest of the week, has a good weekend. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time.